What if I told you South Carolina's next championship leap might not be about getting bigger? It might be about getting scarier at point guard. Because Kaleena Special K Smith, the number one player in the 2027 class, is the kind of guard who changes the geometry of the entire court. We are not saying she is coming to South Carolina, but if Dawn Staley ever put that kind of shot-making pace and superstar gravity inside this Gamecocks machine, women's basketball might have a real problem. Gamecock fans, this is one of those recruiting conversations where you have to slow down and really understand what is sitting on the table. Kaleena Smith is not just another 5-star. She is ESPN's number one player in the 2027 class. 24/7 Sports also has her at the very top of the 2027 rankings. She's a 5'6" point guard from Ontario Christian in California, and the nickname is Special K for a reason. We're talking about deep range. We're talking about handle. We're talking about pace. We're talking about a player who can score 30, but also bend a defense so badly that everybody else eats too. And here's why this matters for us. South Carolina is in a fascinating place right now. The Gamecocks are still elite, still loaded, still Dawn Staley. But after the 2026 national championship loss to UCLA, and with veteran guard production moving on, this program is clearly building the next version of itself. So today we are breaking down the real question. Not, is KK Smith coming? The real question is, if South Carolina landed a guard like this, how much would it change? The offense, the tempo, the spacing, the fear factor, the recruiting arms race, even the Nike and Adidas business layer around women's hoops. And stay with me, because near the end, I'm going to give you the master plan version of what a Special K South Carolina lineup could look like. Drop a comment right now. If you could add one type of player to this Gamecocks roster, would it be a superstar point guard, a lockdown wing, or another dominant post? Let's start with the player. Kaleena Smith is listed at 5'6", so if you are just looking at height, you might miss it. But the game tells the truth. She averaged monster numbers at Ontario Christian. Over 30 points per game, nearly 7 assists, plus steals, plus leadership, plus championship production. That is not good prospect stuff. That is the whole defensive game plan starts with her stuff. And then she goes to the 2026 FIBA U18 AmeriCup and proves it against elite competition. She finishes as one of the tournament's biggest offensive engines, gives Team USA scoring, playmaking, and late-game juice, and earns All-Star 5 recognition. That matters. Because high school dominance is one thing, but when you see it translate into international competition against size, pressure, and different defensive styles, now the projection gets louder. What makes her special is not just that she can score, it is how she scores. She has that pull-up range that forces defenders to pick her up early, and once a defender has to guard you 2 or 3 steps beyond the arc, the whole floor stretches. The big has to come higher. The help defender has to lean. The weak side has to tag earlier. Suddenly one guard with range is creating space for all 5 players. That is the stuff South Carolina fans should really pay attention to, because we all know Dawn Staley teams are going to defend. We know they are going to rebound. We know they are going to have size, toughness, and pros all over the floor. But when a championship game slows down, when the opponent has scouted your first action, your second action, and your third action, you need somebody who can simply create an advantage. Like Special K is that kind of player. Now let's talk fit, because this is where it gets fun. South Carolina has size. South Carolina has athletes. South Carolina has front court power. Joyce Edwards, Chloe Kitts, Ashlyn Watkins, Olivia Edwards, Jersey Robinson, Agat McKeer, Adhel Tech. That is a lot of length, a lot of strength, and a lot of pressure on the rim. And the Gamecocks also added Jordan Lee from Texas, a 6-foot guard who gives them real perimeter help in scoring. But with a guard like Kaleena Smith, the floor changes. Picture this. Smith brings the ball up. The defense wants to protect the paint, because that is what teams always want to do against South Carolina. They want bodies near the lane. They want to crowd the bigs. They want to make every post catch feel like a wrestling match. But now Smith is 3 feet behind the line. What do? If you back up, she walks into a 3. If you press up, she gets downhill. If you send help, Joyce Edwards is catching in space. If the big steps up, the lob is there. If the wing tags, the corner shooter is open. That is the power of a true superstar point guard. She doesn't just add points. She removes comfort from the defense. And for South Carolina, that might be the missing ingredient in those tight, late March possessions. The Gamecocks are always going to have physicality, but the next evolution is forcing opponents to guard more space. Not just the lane, not just the elbows, the whole floor. And that is why Smith is so intriguing. She could make South Carolina feel less like a traditional powerhouse and more like a full-court nightmare with half-court answers. That is the scary version. That is the version where the opponent says, we survived the rebounding, we survived the pressure, but now we have to guard a 30-foot pull-up too? Good luck, Gamecock fans, be honest. Would this be the most dangerous offensive guard fit Dawn has ever had? Drop your take in the comments. Here's another layer people are going to overlook. Smith is not just a half-court player. She changes tempo, and there is a difference between playing fast and playing rushed. South Carolina loves pressure. The Gamecocks love turning defense into offense. When they have waves of athletes, they can make a game feel like it is happening underwater for the other team. Everything gets heavy. Every pass gets hard. Every rebound becomes a track meet. But with a guard like Smith, you get pace with control. That is huge, because when she pushes, she is not just sprinting into traffic. She's reading the floor early. Hit a head pass, drag screen, quick pull-up, change of speed, reject the screen, get the big A seal before the defense sets. That is how you punish teams before they get organized. And imagine that with South Carolina athletes running the lanes. Jersey Robinson filling one side, Joyce Edwards trailing, Kitts or Watkins diving to the rim, Jordan Lee spacing. Now the defense has to make impossible choices in transition. Stop the ball, protect the rim, find the shooter, box out. You cannot do all of it. And this is where Smith's size becomes less of a concern and more of a tactical question. Yes, at 5'6", she would have to keep developing strength, defensive technique, and screen navigation. SEC guards are physical. That is real. But if she is controlling pace, forcing turnovers with anticipation, and making opponents defend 94 feet of decision-making, that size conversation gets more complicated, because basketball is not a height contest. It is an advantage contest. Can you create them? Can you protect them? Can you multiply them? Special K does. Let's zoom out, because if South Carolina gets involved with a recruit like this, it is never just about one player. It is a message. South Carolina already has the championship infrastructure, the banners, the WNBA pipeline, the national TV attention, the fan base, the coach, the culture. Dawn Staley can walk into a living room and say, we know how to turn elite talent into elite professionals. That is not a pitch. That is a resume. But landing the number one player in 2027, especially a point guard with this kind of national profile, would send a different type of message. It would say South Carolina is not just reloading. South Carolina is modernizing, because women's basketball is changing. The game is more spaced. Guards are more skilled. The NIL world is bigger. Branding matters. Shoe deals matter. Social media matters. International competition matters. The best players are not just athletes anymore. They are basketball businesses. And Smith is already in that world. She signed with Adidas as a high school NIL athlete. South Carolina is moving into a Nike era with a deal that includes Aja Wilson integration. So if this recruitment ever got truly serious, there would be a fascinating business layer. Not drama, not some fake shoe war panic, but logistics. How does a major Adidas-affiliated high school star fit into a Nike flagship college program tied to one of the greatest Gamecocks ever? That is the new world. And South Carolina is one of the few programs big enough to make that conversation feel realistic. Because the Gamecocks are not just selling basketball anymore. They're selling stage, brand, legacy, development, and winning. That is why the national fear factor would jump. UConn fans would notice. LSU fans would notice. USC and UCLA fans would notice. Everybody would notice. Because a South Carolina team with elite size and a true superstar guard, that is the kind of roster people start talking about in July. What do you think matters more in this recruitment, development, NIL, brand, fit, or winning? Put one word in the comments. Now, we cannot talk about this without mentioning the SEC arms race. LSU is not sitting still. They have been aggressive. They have momentum. They have made big recruiting noise. Malaysia Fulwiley transferred from South Carolina to LSU and became a major weapon there. LSU also landed 5-star center Caroline Bradley in the 2027 class. So for South Carolina, the 2027 guard board matters. And Smith is the highest ceiling offensive swing. But she's not the only guard to know. Gigi Banks is another major name. Physical, downhill, defensive pressure. A guard who feels very easy to imagine in Dawn Staley's system because she can turn defense into offense and bring that SEC edge. Then there is Taylor the Glove Brown, who South Carolina reportedly offered in May 2026. She brings more of that two-way point guard profile. Toughness, organization, defense. A player who could stabilize a roster and set the tone. So the question becomes, what version of the next South Carolina backcourt does Dawn want? Do you want the nuclear offensive ceiling with Smith? Do you want the pressure defense fit with Banks? Do you want the steadier point guard organizer with Brown? There's no lazy answer there. But if we are talking pure ceiling, pure star power, this changes how every opponent scouts South Carolina, Smith is the one who makes the conversation explode. Because a guard like that does not just fill a need. She bends the identity. South Carolina would still be South Carolina. Tough, physical, defensive, relentless. But now with a point guard who can hit you from the parking lot and make your help defense late all night, that is a different monster. All right, here's the master plan. This is the part I really want Gamecock fans to picture. If South Carolina had Kaleena Smith as the offensive organizer, the entire attack could be built around 3 layers. Layer 1, deep guard gravity. Smith pulls the defense higher than it wants to go. Layer 2, elite front court pressure. Joyce Edwards, Kitts, Watkins, Olivia Edwards, Robinson, all those big skilled bodies punish the space created behind the first line of defense. Layer 3, transition chaos. South Carolina turns the defense into speed, and Smith makes the first good decision before the other team even knows who they're guarding. That is the blueprint. And the best part, it does not require South Carolina to stop being South Carolina. This is not about turning Dawn Staley's program into some finesse-only, live-by-the-3 team. No. This is about adding a flamethrower to a team that already wins the fight. That is the difference. A lot of programs need a guard like Smith to save them. South Carolina would need a guard like Smith to unlock the final version. And that is a terrifying thought. Because when the Gamecocks have had elite guard play with elite interior play, they have been nearly impossible to deal with. The defense travels, the rebounding travels, the toughness travels. But when the shot creation travels too, that is championship basketball. Now let's keep it credible. There are questions. Can Smith hold up defensively in the SEC? Can she handle bigger guards posting her? Can South Carolina protect her in switches? Can the staff build the right lineup balance around her? Those are fair questions. But here's the answer that matters. South Carolina has the roster structured to cover for a small guard better than almost anybody. Length behind her, rim protection behind her, athletes around her, a coach who can scheme pressure, hide weak spots, and demand defensive growth. So if you're asking, could this work? Yes. If you're asking, would it be electric? Absolutely. If you're asking, would the rest of women's college basketball be nervous? Come on now. They would be studying the schedule the day she committed. Again, we are not predicting that. We are saying the basketball fit is loud. Scale of 1 to 10. How scary would a Smith-led South Carolina offense be? I'm putting it at a 9.5, and I might be underselling it. So here's the bottom line. Kaleena Special Case Smith to South Carolina is not something we can claim. No commitment, no prediction, no pretending. But as a basketball idea, it is massive. Because Smith represents the exact kind of player who could raise South Carolina's offensive ceiling. She brings deep shooting, pace control, pick-and-roll creativity, and the kind of star gravity that forces defenses to make bad choices. And for a Gamecocks program that already has size, culture, defense, and championship DNA, that kind of guard could be the difference between being elite and being terrifying. This is why recruiting matters before the visit photos, before the commitment graphics, before the final list. Because the fit tells you what the future could look like. And this future, Gamecock fans, this one is worth watching. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit the like button, subscribe for more South Carolina women's basketball content, and turn on notifications, because this 2027 recruiting board is going to get spicy. And I want to hear from you. Now, would you rather South Carolina land Kaleena Smith, Gigi Banks, or Taylor Brown? Drop your answer in the comments and then watch the next video, where we break down how Dawn Staley's next roster could bounce back after that UCLA title game loss. Until then, stay locked in. The dynasty is not done. It is evolving.